Aaron Long tightened his hands around the mule team's reins as the dog halted in the trail ahead of them, ears pricked toward something in the distance. The mangy mutt's body nearly quivered with tension. Aaron peered through the scattering of pines ahead, but no sign of movement flashed through the branches. A low growl slipped from the dog's throat, and Aaron lifted the rifle from the seat beside him to firing position. "Who's there, Barney?" Of course, the mutt didn't answer. Still, no motion ahead, no sounds. In fact, nothing. Not the twitter of a bird or even the rustle of wind. A shiver slid down Aaron's arms, and he shifted to climb down from his freight wagon's bench. He kept tight hold of the bar he'd fastened for support until both his legs landed on the ground and his right leg secured its balance. Then he eased some of his weight onto the gimpy left limb, finally releasing the bar once he stood straight. This leg might be the death of him yet. He'd survived the bullet that ripped away part of his thigh bone, then the surgery to add a metal plate to replace the missing fragments. Even endured the year of dark days as he recovered and learned to walk again. With God's help, he'd mostly come to peace about the accident. He'd been the one in the wrong after all. But the way this leg slowed him down still pressed on his frustrations, not to mention the constant ache on cold days like today. With winter coming on, this pain would be his steady companion for months. As he hobbled along the road, another burning in that limb made itself known, this one farther down. His shoe had rubbed a hole through his stocking and started into his flesh 2 days ago. He'd stopped to help a driver retrieve items from an overturned load, and all that walking up and down the mountainside had started a chafing that hadn't stopped since. We glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation worketh patience. He replayed the verse from Romans that he'd been clinging to ever since he'd found those powerful words. According to the Apostle Paul, patience would produce perseverance, and the perseverance would turn into hope. Lord, I could use some hope right now. He pushed aside the pain and dark thoughts it always tried to summon, then stepped forward, focusing on the road ahead. Barney still held his position, staring into the distance, but occasionally the dog would glance back, as though to make sure Aaron was following. Aaron did his best to quiet his footfalls as he limped forward, though he could never manage the silent stalk he'd mastered before, in his past life. The road wound through the trees, but he took a more direct route, so he didn't have to walk as far. Also, the foliage would give him cover if a true threat lurked ahead. Since he hadn't heard any unusual sounds, this was more likely to be an animal than a human, and the only creature this quiet who posed a danger would be a wildcat. Aaron shifted his attention up to the trees ahead of him. Perhaps he should have taken the road instead of planting himself under so many branches where a cougar might be waiting. But the lower branches were far enough apart through here that he could see an animal long before he came close enough to be attacked. Barney trotted beside him, just out of reach but never straying far. The mongrel probably only stayed with him for the food Aaron tossed him at each meal, for he'd never actually allowed Aaron to touch him.